Thank you, Mr. Shimazono. Indeed, it was my dear memory that we dug out our car from snow. That was the first and only experience in my life. Let me present on Fukushima project, nuclear disaster stress relief. First, I'll speak about nuclear disasters and past nuclear disaster studies. Fukushima, and I'll explain the Fukushima project. I don't have to repeat. March the 11th, we had the earthquake. This was the epicenter of the quake, and we got tsunami. And many of you know this, so I don't speak too much. Loss of electricity supply, and the emergency generator started to move. That's what, until up to this point, this was a kind of ordinary disaster scenario. But then the generator was placed in the basement, not on a hill. So when the tsunami came, the generator got disabled. So station blackout. This is Mr. Yoshida, as many of you must know. He has deceased, but he led a heroic effort to try to control the plant. But explosion and escape and evacuation had to take place. And many residents from Fukushima, I believe there was some presenter evacuee, including him. There have been many people who had to leave Fukushima. Past nuclear disaster study, some studies from Nagasaki and the 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl. This is Dr. Kim's study on Nagasaki atomic bomb explosion. And I don't think I can point. the correct knowledge of the population about light, the difference of light and X-ray were limited. Also, the correct information in the population that radiation does exist under completely natural condition also is low. And what affects the mental health of the Nagasaki residents? Of course, those residents who were in the exposed area, their mental health was worse. That is the top line. But from the third from the bottom, you see that when people are not aware that lightning is different from radiation, then it affects their mental health. When people do not know that radiation does exist in a natural environment, it affects their mental health. This is a finding. And Evelyn Bromet is a very conscientious researcher in Stony Brook University, and she has done follow-up study for 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl. 3 Mile Island incident took place in central Pennsylvania. And while not substantial radioactive substance got released from the plant in 3 Mile Island, but mothers continued to worry 10 years after the incident, and 42% believe that their health was affected by the incident. 68% of the mothers believe that their children's health was affected. So this risk perception was related with distress and poor self-rated health. Chernobyl was the worst accident out of the 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, Fukushima. And Chernobyl survey. 11 and 19 years after disaster, they compared 300 evacuee children and 300 gender-masked classmate controls in Kiev. And they provided medical examination and blood tests. And health of children, there was no differences in terms of mental health, physical examination, blood tests, even in grades at school. However, mothers, 11 years after the accident, 37% of the evacuee mothers thought that their children's health was bad or very bad, while only 14% of the control mothers replied that way. And there was significant differences in mother's health for mental health, subjective health, and self-stigma. And most importantly, self-stigma. Does your child have an evacuee friend? Green is evacuee mothers. So almost all mothers have their child who has an evacuee child. Okay, the right column. Do you want your child to get married with another evacuee child? There were around 6-7% of evacuee mothers who replied, I do not want my evacuee child to get married with another evacuee children. So this is self-stigma among the evacuee mothers. Fukushima project, one component is parent-child play and discussion. The second is focus group with community nurses. Third is health class and discussion. Fourth is cognitive behavioral activation. The fifth is expressive reading and discussion. And support to supporters. Parent-child play and peer discussion. This program has been provided by Fukushima Association of Clinical Psychologists. Procedures is simple. Staff pre-meeting, then parent-child ice break 5 minutes, parent-child play together 30 minutes. Then parent and children get separated. Parents peer discussion 60 minutes while children are taken care in the nursery. Then parent children get together again and 5-minute cool down, and the staff will have post-meeting. So these are some photos from the program. The top left is ice break. Then mothers and children get play together, running. Then lower left, parents engage in peer discussion, and lower right, cool down, furoshiki ballooning play. From 2011 June to 2013 May, 301 sessions were held in 34 places, and around 3,000 parents and 3,100 children participated in the program, and 1,872 staff supported the program. The staff includes nurses, community nurses, clinical psychologists, and other disciplines. These are the answers from survey. How useful was the session? 45% very useful, 47% useful, 8% ordinary. How did your feeling change pre and post? 46% relieved and 45% slightly relieved. No change, 80%. 1% got slightly more anxious than before the session. And these are the free answers. The participants felt the effect to speaking group, including worry about radiation and food. They got aware of feeling stress of themselves. They got aware of change in children through play. They felt an effect of play program, and some mothers requested more and regular sessions. Some mothers felt that the discussion could be longer. And some mothers requested for individual sessions with clinical psychologists. Focus group with community nurses. We held focus group in 3 cities with 32 community nurses. The session was for 2 hours. And we identified the stages of community nurses' tasks. The first phase is immediate difficulty after the disaster. Second is contradicting radiation information. Third stage is exploration of support to residents. The fourth stage, continuing tasks. We are still in the fourth stage. And I pick up the findings from the 2 phases, contradicting radiation information. Of course, when the contradicting radiation information got released, the residents became extremely anxious and angry, and many residents decided to leave Fukushima. But as city employees, community nurses themselves could not leave. They prioritized their duties, they stayed. But then, understandably, they got targeted for questions, complaints, and anger of the citizens. But when they tried to reply to the questions, they themselves were uncertain and distrustful about the information provided by the government or other related agencies. Later, they tried to provide pamphlets or more correct information to the residents through pamphlets and other means, and they started to explore, provide support, but the tasks continues. Typically, there exists conflict within family whether or not to return to Fukushima. And when some mothers put together their courage and they encourage their children to play outside, then they might receive a hurting comment from neighbor or relatives. Or what dangerous things are you doing to your children? Then they get hurt. And now they are identifying a limited number of vulnerable residents who have vulnerable factors even before the disaster, but understandably, these individuals are more affected by the disaster. Cognitive behavior activation program. This program is provided by Tokyo University Group, and this is cognitive behavior model. When there takes place an event, it could be a media report which provides somewhat provoking article. Then idea, oh, I have to be fearful of the radiation. Oh, it must be very dangerous to continue living in Fukushima. This is a biased thought. Then they could have physical symptoms, and emotionally they may feel anxious or depressed. The model is that through encouragement of action when the participant can experience activities, increase activity, when they can experience some pleasure or sense of achievement. We hope that these will alleviate the bias thought, physical symptoms, or emotional reactions. The intervention is called iki-iki, meaning liveliness. Seminars for mothers, 2 once-a-week sessions, 90 minutes. They do homework. This is a participatory program composed of group discussion, and we aim to attain behavior activation. These are the photos from the seminar. This is a very, very preliminary survey. 7 young mothers participated in the seminar, and inactive passive pleasure feeling. With passive pleasure feeling, we observed a significant improvement, and also not at a significant level, but in subjective mental health, subjective physical health, satisfaction with life, anxiety about child rearing. We observed a favorable tendency of change. Health class and discussion. This is composed of a regular health class followed by small group discussion. And program may be provided mainly by community nurses, but also possibly other carers in the region. We provide training for community nurses to conduct this program. And the pilot program was done in Fukushima in September already. And on the 9th of December, we will do the pilot program in Iwaki City as well. Training was done on the 30th of September. It is composed of lecture, skill of listening, and role play, good and bad listening examples. Then lecture, skill of questioning. Then lecture, skill of consensus building, and role play of session with residents. The community nurses take a role of resident, silent resident, or very talkative resident, or complaining resident, or resident who may attack other participants. So these roles are set, and they try to learn how they can better control the discussion and make the discussion more useful for the participant. And at the end of the training, the community nurses, the participants themselves, will have group discussion. Again, this is a preliminary survey result. We obtained 32 replies from community nurses in Fukushima City. This is a 4-point Likert scale survey. Do you understand the procedures of discussion? Before, the average was 1.91, and post, it improved to 3.13, significant. Do you know how to deal with trouble situations? Before, 1.72, after 3.09, significant change. Do you know how to make the discussion useful for participants, for residents? Before, 2.38, after 3.47, significant change. Are you willing to facilitate discussion? We do not observe significant change because even when the community nurses did not feel that they understand the procedures very well, when they feel that they do not know how to deal with trouble situations, when they do not feel that they are not confident they can make the discussion useful for the resident, still, even before the session, the community nurses were so committed that they are willing to facilitate discussion 3.66. So the full point is 4.0. So there was virtually a little space for improvement, and we did not observe significant improvement. This is expressive reading by professional actors followed by group discussion program. This program has been developed in the States by an NPO organization called Outside the Wire. This group originally tried to support the stress of war veterans from Iraq or Afghanistan. But now they have a few programs, and which includes one program is for alcoholism, and the program is called Rum and Vodka. This method has been widely practiced, and its effect has been confirmed in the United States. However, this is the first time we introduced this program to Japan, and we have chosen appropriate text, and we will confirm whether this program can be adaptable to people in Japan on the 27th, this coming Thursday, in Fukushima City with community nurses. Support to supporters, as has been discussed, the evacuation is prolonged and breakage of community is taking place, and community nurses and mental health care centers are trying to support the resident, but they are extremely burnt out. The issue of alcoholism clearly exists there. Some are fearful, some are afraid that the suicide rate might be starting to increase, and how we can build, how we can establish mid to long-term support. As I cited from the study from 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl, we have to think at least 10 years scheme, support scheme. How can we establish such a scheme? So my summary, it is clear that biased worry leads to distress and poor self-rated health with regard to the radiation stress. And we need to provide support to mothers, and cognition activation is one component we are thinking. And also, we hope that cohesion can be enhanced among the residents through discussion, as must have been discussed. Radiation stress damages the cohesion among the residents easily. And we hope to provide support to supporters, and if we could form a council of stakeholders, it would be ideal. But the reality is the community nurses, other main players are extremely burnt out, and they are not in a position to consider taking these proactive measures. And we have to think what can be done realistically. This is AKIYAMA Park in Fukushima City. We hope, and we should, restore peace in Fukushima. Thank you very much for your listening.